Let's go.
You're listening to Making Data Simple, where we make the world of data effortless, relevant, and yes, even fun.
Hey, podcast listeners, Al Martin here. I'm with Rishi Kumar, who is a high-tech software executive around data, AI, data integration. He is also a U.S. congressional candidate from Silicon Valley. See, I get the best of the best on my podcast. You know, that's how we roll here. So let me give a little intro to Rishi, and then we'll turn it over to him as usual. He's a seasoned software executive. He's actually had a career at IBM, my home spot, Cisco, other startups. He's now part of nFolks, where he runs sales, marketing, product management. In fact, I think the formal title, and he'll have to confirm this, but he's the chief revenue officer at nFolks. He's also we'll get this straight, for U.S. Congress from Silicon Valley, where I know he's got a great start to it one way or another. He's an advocate for crypto. Maybe we'll get into that. But a veteran of IBM for 15 years, now that chief revenue officer of nFolks. Rishi, I appreciate you being here. We had some trouble with scheduling and whatever, but we finally figured it out.
Well, I'm glad we finally got together, and I'm really looking forward to this discussion on data today, Al. And I've been following your podcast for some time, so it's an honor to be here talking to you.
Thank you. It's great to have you on. We had, I think the last time we were able to meet, where were we? We were someplace over dinner.
That's right. It was in Orlando, and that was at a conference. And we were sitting next to each other and having a good conversation. And that's when we talked about being on this podcast. And I'm super happy we finally made it happen.
Please provide your experience. Look, go back as far as you like. And you might even hit us on a little bit of politics.
So, Al, very simply stated, I'm a Silicon Valley geek that made it out from India for graduate school mechanical engineering to the University of Connecticut. I'm a big college basketball fan, and then made it out here in Silicon Valley working for companies like IBM, Cisco. But what has truly excited me is to be part of the innovation story, not only in IBM, Cisco, but also in multiple startups. And what I ended up strangely doing was applying that tech framework into community affairs, into working in the community. And I have very, very interesting stories. And I never, ever thought in my wildest dream that I would run for office someday. But we ended up running for city council. And that was a wild shot. And the very first time we escaped with a victory margin of only 71 votes. Every vote counts. But 4 years later, we won with the highest votes in 66 years of my city. Because someone like me, a tech geek, if I can put my arms around the different challenges and actually work to find solutions, which is where I see Washington totally broken today. We can actually make a huge dent, make a huge difference. And this is really what my community observed. But everything points back to my tech roots in terms of how we have worked within companies like IBM, Cisco. It's all about getting things done. If you don't step up, if you don't deliver, then you're out. And that's the same kind of zeal, energy, innovation approach that I seek to take to Washington now in this run.
Well, I already got a ton of questions I'd like to ask you. On the politics piece, how do you get into that from being a technologist? I mean, obviously Silicon Valley, maybe that's the natural transition, but there must be some passion in you that has really driven your interest.
Well, my wife says that I'm a glutton for punishment. And, what I essentially did was I looked at problems around me, and then I would look around me as to who's going to step up. And I realized that there was really no one stepping up, and it fell upon me. And the glutton for punishment I said, okay, let's take on this challenge and the next one. And then people started pushing me on like, hey, we need you to do this or run for this office. And that actually led me to this run for Congress, because There is a little bit of disillusionment with politics in this country, in our community here in Silicon Valley.
You think?
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit is an understatement. And I
Yeah.
see people are essentially looking at what's playing out. It's a lot of political platitudes. It's a lot of activity for the sake of activity, but it's never really about actually finding solutions. And many of our elected leaders are essentially looking for an opportunity to continue on their seats, and that's the reason why people decided they wanted me on the city council. And then eventually a lot of the tech audience of Silicon Valley started calling out that, hey, we need someone like you in Washington. And I don't think so I ever thought that I would be sitting here running for office, or to be in Washington. If you look at my background, coming into this country with two suitcases to be a graduate student in mechanical engineering out there on the East Coast. And so it's a wild dream, but I'm really enjoying this ride for sure, Hal.
Fantastic. So you said no one is stepping up. What is your definition of stepping up?
Well, in terms of, let's look at California. We see a major exodus going on, and then we see the issues with housing. There is a big housing crunch, homelessness. There's a lot of crime going on. We have recurring drought, and the water infrastructure that was built for California 100 years back was for 10 million people, and today we are exactly at the same situation, but the population has gone 4x. So, we see a lot of, like, then you look at the state of California. We had $100 billion deficit just about a year and a half back. And today we are bracing for a $30 billion, $100 billion surplus, which has become a $30 billion deficit today. So this is what people are talking about. That, look, there's really nothing getting done. Sacramento has gone a little haywire. They are now looking at uh, essentially increasing taxes, and nobody's really interested in optimizing the public sector. But it's all about, let's go back to the people and raise more money. But this is not how the real world operates. And people want rational, pragmatic, common sense thinking, folks who can get stuff done. And that was really how I got inserted into this role as a candidate today.
You talk about people leaving California. I hear that in the news a lot. And some of the other items that you mentioned, it's kind of like a downward spiral, though, isn't it? Because people leave, you need to make up the tax revenue someplace. So then you increase, or you want to, there's a tendency to increase taxes or try to get taxes. Then more people leave. Then it's, is that some of what you're facing? And how does this intersect with technology?
Essentially, when you look at, so that's a great question now. When you look at California, I would say about 40-45% of our revenue comes from Silicon Valley. So to an extent, I think Sacramento needs to treat Silicon Valley as a prized asset. But then when Elon Musk left and he moved to Texas, uh, a politician here in California remarked that it's okay to have cranky, crazy billionaires leave California. But I think we are doing a huge disservice to our state when we have these companies and these people leaving for other states, because we cannot ever take our tech economy, the innovators, for granted, because there are some states that are dying to take over. You look at, for example, the mayor of Miami. He's rolled out the red carpet for companies, and there are so many venture capital investors that have actually moved to Miami from Silicon Valley. And then you look at the innovators; they are moving to Texas, they are moving to Austin. So that's been the story, and I think California needs to get its act together. And it again boils down to tech. We need to, everything that has happened here in the valley has been because of the smart people who arrive here from all parts of the United States, folks like Scott McNeely or Larry Ellison, or like Elon Musk, and they arrive from different parts of the world, and they make things happen. And it's not like policies or anything else that are in favor. But I think we need to make it conducive. Need to make it work. And some of the policy ideas that we have is to create an innovation hub that nobody's ever done before. For example, I was very fortunate to be part of the California Department of Education Computer Science Strategic Implementation Panel. And we have rolled out a K 12 curriculum for every child in the state of California to study computer science. We need more of such ideas here, but we really don't see that. And I see, everybody in our politicians are essentially chasing herd. I mean, they are following cattle, they are going down a cliff at times, but really not trying to actually address and find solutions to problems. So this is where I think people are getting more and more frustrated.
So, the surprising comment in your statement is that you mentioned that Silicon Valley or California in general needs an innovation hub, quote unquote. I mean, when you think of Silicon Valley and California, more Silicon Valley than larger California, but you think innovation, how can it be that they need an innovation hub? I think it sounds strange, I think, to many that could be listening. We're talking about Silicon Valley here.
Yes, you're right. You're right, Al. It sounds a little strange. But again, what has happened here is because of the water we drink and of the ecosystem that's been established here of people. But when I touched upon the California Department of Education, the computer science curriculum, when I look at schools here in the Valley, for example, there's only a single class of programming, the Java programming in high school, and that's about it. I mean, there is no other class that are we really offering a community college program where we are teaching the art of innovation, and this is where I believe we are not really doing what we should be. We are sitting on something amazing and wonderful here. This is the golden state. I mean, this is the gold mining that continues happening. But I don't think so. We have really launched programs to ensure that this can thrive. Now, for example, China and India, they are eating our lunch. The crypto industry, for example, is a lot more robust in China. When you look at the CBDC, the digital currency, China has already rolled out their e-yuan. We see that India is running a pilot right now. There is nothing really happening here. And then we see all these companies like FTX that have really tanked and collapsed and people going to jail. So I think we can do a lot better. And it comes from a little ownership and investment by our public sector. Whether it's the city of San Jose or whether it's the state of California, I think we need to establish these centers of excellence where our high school students, middle school students, the innovators, the CTOs, and even the politicians and professors from community colleges and local universities can get together and really create a culture of startup where they are teaching these students early on in terms of what it takes to do a startup. Because I fear that when this generation that is currently out here in the valley innovating, when they begin to fade out, and if we haven't really passed the baton, things can go downhill pretty quickly. So that's my big fear, and that's the reason why I believe the onus is upon the public sector to take charge a little bit and ensure that we can have a thriving innovation economy here in Silicon Valley.
If there are, and I'll switch to technology here in just a second, but if there's like three areas that you're campaigning on, if you were to summarize it, what is it? What are those three?
Well, firstly, it's about getting things done, and been very effective as a local council member in getting stuff done. We believe that Washington needs more of that. And secondly, I don't think so. If I look at Washington, or I look at the leaders here, there's no one really who is tech savvy, who has an understanding of the innovation economy. So my plan is, with my approach and understanding of the economy from the inside of our startup economy, of the innovation economy, someone like me can make a big, huge difference when it comes to growing our economy. And then thirdly, the future viability of Silicon Valley, because when companies are leaving and when startups are leaving, this is going to cause a huge amount of problems. And there are underlying issues and challenges that I touched upon with water, with traffic, with housing. We need a plan. We need a vision plan to address how we'll bring this all together to ensure the future sustainability of Silicon Valley. So those are my top three, and we have a plan. We have a plan. Uh, we were on the drawing boards, coming together with a vision plan, like what are the major issues, what are the types of solutions we can uncover to ensure that we will address these challenges as the congressional elect from Silicon Valley. And essentially, it's a good plan. We believe we can make it happen. We just need a chance to be on that seat and get a win next year.
Why are these companies leaving? And I certainly know, I mean, it's been in the news that Elon is one that has left, but who else of prominence has left that raises the concern?
Well, somebody like Larry Ellison, he's left. He's no longer here. He's taken his tax money, and he's left. Palantir has left, and there are many examples of companies that are leaving. I mean, Tesla is still here; they're manufacturing, but they have moved their headquarters. So this shift has been happening. Hundreds of companies have left. The venture capital community themselves, they have gone, and the pandemic was really the tipping point, because the companies and the folks realized that they did not have to live here in a super expensive Silicon Valley, and they said, let's take our money, let's pack our bags, and move elsewhere.
Larry, Palantir, hundreds are leaving. Are they leaving because of taxes, or is there other elements?
Well, taxes is definitely a big, huge element. A story is, in my town, there was somebody who used to live here who I knew, and he made like billions of dollars with his startup. And the first thing he did was he moved to Reno, Nevada, and he wanted to save on his taxes. And California, the truth is, the taxes are very high. But also, when it comes to crime, for example, crime is a big problem in every part of California, I would say. When we go to the movie theaters, my wife and I will leave the windows down because they just randomly show up. They break into cars trying to find stuff. So crime is a big problem. When you look at the state of San Francisco with the homelessness that has gone completely haywire, and we really don't have solutions. So these are challenges. I mean, you look at the city of San Francisco; they have lost about 250,000 people over the last 3 years, and it's still shrinking because people are sick and tired. I mean, the tourists are not showing up there anymore. So those are the types of challenges, and people find it very easy. And in fact, my story is, when I knock on doors over the weekend, I'm at different streets in different cities in my congressional district, and almost every street I find a family or two that have packed their bags or have already left town. Almost every street, because people are a little tired of this. They feel that they can go somewhere else and find that quality of life they're looking for, and that's really what's going on.
Where are you originally from?
From Bombay, India.
And how long have you been in the U.S. then?
I came for my graduate school, mechanical engineering, and then moved to Silicon Valley in 2000. And I've been here ever since.
One thing that occurs to me when I'm looking at your resume, so to speak, I mean, yeah, you talk about being the city council member. I look at all the different areas where you've either been a board member, I mean, like West Valley Clean Water Program, West Valley Solid Waste Management Authority, commissioner of a County Expressway Ad Hoc Committee, Santa Clara County Library, JPA. Man, that's a lot of committees. That's a lot of work. How do you do that? How do you prioritize when you're also running or you're also serving as a chief revenue officer for nFolks? Do you sleep? I mean, how does one do that?
And now that "do you sleep" line has been repeated 1,000 times. Folks who know me, they're always asking me this question. Where do you find the time? Where you find the energy to do all this? And my wife says it, she states it very succinctly. What she says is, since you became an elected leader, we haven't had a weekend. So, I work pretty hard.
Uh-oh.
It's 12, 16-hour days. And And so that's been the nature of what's going on. I mean, still a full-time day job, and then the politics and the community. And but what I feel is that it's basically been like I found my life's calling doing this, and so it's not really work. I enjoy what I'm doing, and it makes me very happy as a person. So it's not really work. In fact, I feel that it's actually helping my mood, for example, in a huge way. It's very therapeutic for me to be out there solving problems and helping people, and that's really my calling, the reason why we are running for this particular office.
Congressional District 16, Silicon Valley. When is the what? That sounds like it's the next steps. When is the vote? When will we know?
Yes, California has a top two system with the primary election. It's one common pool of candidates from all parties, and that the top two make it to the next round. So I'm challenging another Democrat who's been there for a long, long time. And in last year, we actually beat six other challengers to make it past to the November election with the same incumbent. And we did about more than 42% in that last run, which is historic. Nobody has ever crossed like 25-30% over the last few decades. So we exceeded that. We obviously fell short, and we believe we can win this. And the way this will work is right now I haven't seen anyone else running in the primary election. It's just two of us, the incumbent and myself, and we believe we'll win again. We'll be top two, and then it'll be the general election of November. And the plan is to win that race in a huge way, and take this innovation approach to Washington.
But you got to spend some of your time with campaign finance, do you not? I mean, trying to raise funds for a campaign. Can you tell me about that? I mean, look.
Yes, that is probably the most difficult part of a campaign. But this congressional district that I'm running from is the most affluent congressional district in all of America. It's number one because it's all the tech money here. So if you can raise money here, it's probably you should just go home and retire or something, right? So we raised about we raised about $1.2 million in the last run, and unfortunately, the incumbent spent three times more money, and that's the edge that the incumbent has. And one of the pledges we have taken is to never accept any dark tainted money, like no PAC money, no special interest group money, whereas my opponent does accept all that money. And it's absolutely, people tell me now that Rishi, you should have a change of policy because there is a huge disparity when it comes to raising money. And I tell them the ethics in politics is very important to me. If I can take that stance, and if I can take the stance to Washington, and we'll see hopefully a change happening, because the super PACs and the PACs have polluted American politics. They are subverting the agenda of the people, and it's a very, very important thing to me. So we'll keep on this path of no PAC money, no dark tainted money, raising money from people. We spend a lot of time over the weekend talking to people. It's just, especially during after the pandemic, people are still reluctant to get together and meet in backyard fundraisers, for example. Pre-pandemic, we would raise a lot of money in backyards, and that has sort of faded out. And so now it's about personal outreach, personal contacts, reaching out to people and raising money. So this year hasn't been very good for us so far in terms of raising money, but we believe in the merits of our agenda, of our policy, and we believe that as the election starts coming together in like next year, we will see a spike in our fundraising.
All right, I got to ask a question and a follow-on, because you kind of went into it. Very interesting to me, maybe a little bit contentious, but as you raise money, you talk about ethics in politics. I think it's fair to say that there's a substantial, what do I want to say? There's a substantial portion of those in the U.S. that are losing faith. I mean, is it possible? Once you're entering the money game, everybody wants something in return for their money. So there's a feeling that everybody's bought. how do you avoid that? Is it even possible to avoid that and get the funding you need to run a campaign?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Al. It's a really good question, and mostly what I hear from people, just like your question, is that it's impossible. And then what people also tell me is like, Rishi, you might stay clean now, but once you get to Washington and you're in that
Hmm.
swamp, you will also be transformed. And so people do not have faith in the system today, and it's but at some point the problem is this, that so when I look at other countries across the world, the incumbency is a huge disadvantage. So people tend to uproot the incumbent and replace it with someone who's a challenger because they're very unhappy with the state of affairs. So right now I see America sliding downhill with respect to how we are making these choices. The country is very divided, and our politicians on both sides are actually playing the strokes of division, and they are basically ensuring that they would get elected, but really not addressing the needs of America. And at some point, the frustration will bubble, and that's when a revolution will happen, and people will say, "Okay, out with the incumbents." When you look at our politicians today in Washington, their valuation is into like 200, $300 million. The salary is about $200,000, the salary of a congressional member. So how did they create a portfolio of $200 million? And this is the corruption that is playing out, and there is no accountability because there is absolutely no say that the American people have. I mean, these politicians end up staying for decades. They are really not addressing challenges. In fact, we have seen congressional members who declare that they have done 50 bills in office. But when you actually analyze the resumes, they have only done 3 or 4 of them, very trivial ones like renaming a post office. So, to some extent, some of our politicians are hoodwinking the people because people are really not dissecting and analyzing the resume. The press is also not calling out the failures of these politicians, and this is essentially a recipe for a huge disaster that is brewing. At some point, an American people will say, "Okay, it's time to wake up. It's time to take charge." And until that happens, this will continue to go downhill. And but my take is, it's one person at a time. If I can call out these issues, if I can stay true to my agenda, to ethics and politics, we can hope that in the future we will see some change happen in Washington.
Look, I think it's gonna be difficult, but sounds like you're up for the job. If you can stay true and not bought, then you're onto something. I mean, you make it. You made mention to you don't know what to trust anymore. I mean, look at the George Santos thing. I mean, I, mean, I don't know if he lied about everything, but I mean, that's crazy. I don't know what world we live in anymore. I mean, that's why some of these questions I'm asking you are very interesting to me because you're in the middle of it, and I'm just curious as to what you're seeing versus what we all see
When
outside
you look
looking
at
in. But it's not always good, man.
Correct. When you look at George Santos, for example, I think our people are not getting the truth because the truth has been polluted by both sides, I would say. And so people don't know what to believe. So there are still a segment of the population in that district that will still vote for George Santos because they cannot tell the truth. And again, that's the failure of America. We have gone down a wrong path over the last decade, I would say. Even social media is guilty of that. So I think the pendulum has swung the wrong way, and it's time to reset it.
Well, let's switch to a little technology. I think that's a good transition because speaking of not knowing, you know, what's the truth and what's not. I mean, with the advent of AI, with things like Chat GPT that people can see, and it's a scrape of the internet. And anytime you're looking at social media and you're scraping the internet, I mean, by definition, you're not going to know what's true and what's not. And sometimes the supposed facts come across as facts and are really bold in their assertion, but then you lift up the hood and you say, "Oh, that's not accurate," or it's in context not accurate. What are your thoughts on where we're headed from a technology standpoint? That right now, I don't think it lends itself to more facts, it almost lends itself to more fake news.
You're absolutely spot on, Al. I think we have a lot of fake news happening, and I think there's an opportunity to apply technology. And for example, with Facebook and with Instagram, there is an opportunity for us to correct these algorithms. For example, teenage girls, if they are depressed and watch a video with that specific mood, then they are shown more of that content, which leads to something really bad happening down the road. I think our algorithms are flawed to an extent when if you just look at social media. So that needs to be corrected, and I believe that applying the right type of an AIML algorithm can actually help address some of these. So essentially, there is some sort of a fact check that Facebook has today, for example, and they are sort of displaying that, but it needs to be devoid of a political ideology. And unfortunately, Silicon Valley is guilty of that. I mean, we saw that. And there is a very specific political ideology that is driving how these social media engines are operating, because of the culture that is so very visible here in Silicon Valley. That is part of the system. But I think if you left it to the machine with the right type of algorithms and building robust engines, I don't think so. We are ready for it today. But if we applied the right type of algorithms and we ended up in the next 5 to 10 years, we can see a huge difference. At the end of the day, what's the purpose? We need to ensure that information is accurate, that people can rely upon. Right now, nobody believes what they are seeing, and it's very, very dangerous for the country, because this is the reason why any political ideology can catch fire, because people will tend to believe what they are hearing. And we can fix that by applying the right type of technology.
Podcast listeners, this is Al Martin. I'm going to break this for part one. Next week, we're going to come back and talk about modernizing the data stack. We're going to talk about AI. We'll get back into some tech and politics, talk about crypto. We're going to have some fun. Hopefully you'll join us. Thank you. Bye.